Hi, today I'm going to show you how to put together the 3D star lantern from Simply Crafty SVGs. And first we're going to put together one of the stars. I already put one together, and you can see the vellum on the back. And it does help if you keep the pieces in order on the right there where they go, because they are all different shapes. So when you do cut it, you might want to arrange them for yourselves and stack them up. Only had one because I had already made one of the stars. So here, before we get started, before you add the panels, so we're going to add the panels first, but just carefully score or fold on the score lines. And some of them are really thin, like it's hard to get to them, so you just kind of have to be careful. You may have dashed lines. I have solid scored lines. But either way, you just want to carefully fold it around those cut areas. So you just kind of barely go in the middle or the side. You can kind of work it through. And this will be easier for after we put the panels on. So some of the folds will be mountain folds, which go up, and some will be valley folds, which go down. But we want to start with mountain folds. We want to naturally fold on the score line down first, which is a mountain fold. So you can see I started with that. So now we're going to do the valley folds to make sure they're nice and crisp. So you can use a bone folder or a tool, any tool that you would use. Not even quite sure what the tool's called that I have, but I'm using that to get a crisp edge. Also with the tabs on the edge, sorry about the movement of, for some reason my camera was moving, that will stop. But in the meantime, hope you don't get dizzy, but you want to do valley folds on all the tabs because we want them to kind of fold up. When we glue it, they'll be folding upwards. So this will help to glue it onto the box and to glue it onto the other portion of the star. Okay, so you can go ahead and flatten it out. I just got it all started for us. And then we'll start with the vellum panels on the back. Now each panel is just slightly smaller than the area you're going to glue on. So you just want to be really careful. If you have a fine line applicator like I do, or fine tip applicator, whatever you have, just try to make sure you fit that vellum within the area. Make sure it doesn't go over a fold or anything. So you could just carefully fold it, make sure, before it dries. So again, it does make a difference. They all are slightly different sized because of the geometric shape of the star. Don't do that. I am using Scotch quick dry glue, which is really fast sometimes, so if I don't use a lot of glue, it doesn't adhere quickly. My fault. And just be careful when you're gluing these lines that they're not too close to the inside edge, because you don't want the glue showing on the vellum. You can also make this without the vellum inserts if you like. It doesn't matter. If that is an option, that's something you don't have to add the inserts if you don't want. The light will shine through. To me, I like the look of the vellum, and it's worth the couple extra minutes to do that. Then we'll add the top ones. Now, I numbered them. I don't know if you can see that, but I didn't show you on that. I'll show you on number 2. But I did number these as I took them off the mat, because the way that I show it is the way that it's cut. So, anyways, I just numbered the back. You can't number the vellum. Obviously, you'll be able to see it. So the tip is, as you're taking it off the mat, you can always number it. I started from left and then went clockwise. So now we'll work on the bottom portion of the star. Same thing. We want to just carefully fold on the score lines And then we'll do the same thing where we fold them all down, and then the ones that we need to place a valley fold in the opposite way, we'll fold it back and then use whatever tool, the bone folder, to create a really crisp edge. And that will help tremendously as you to place the actual star on the box. Because after this we'll create the box and then we'll glue the star to the box, or at least the shell of the box. Because this theoretically is part of the box. The other thing too is just keep your hands clean of glue. I know I always state this, so people that have been doing this for a long time already know this, but I have a wet paper towel that's to the right that I can just wipe my fingertips on for some reason, so I can try to keep my fingers clean. And also I use something similar to get any excess glue off quickly. But with quick dry glue, it's not very forgiving, unfortunately. And just remember, these are fitted for each section, so just make sure you have your panels arranged for yourself so it's easy to put together. And that'll go like that when it's on the box. So I'm just making sure it's nice and crisp and ready to go. It's just a fun box. I always want to do like a little 3D star something. I haven't done a lot of lanterns, as I know there's quite a few out there. But this was fun. I plan to do a couple more in the near future. So I have a little glue on the vellum. That happens if I'm not paying attention. You can't see it, fortunately. So we're going to add glue to that little tab on the top part of the star, and we're going to line it up. So we want to line up that bottom left edge to the fold. And once you have it lined up, you want to apply some pressure, get it all secure. Then for the last tab, you're doing the same thing. You may be able to place it, because of all the folds and everything, you may be able to place it. It's kind of pulling over a little bit to match it up because of the 3D, how it's kind of 3D, but you can still press it against the table once you get it in place. The rest of it will just kind of pull up a little bit. So now you have the basic star created. So like I said, do that for both. So now we're going to move on to adding the star to the side, one of the side pieces. Now I've already added one star. So we want to add the vellum to the little star piece. So that little outline or border star, we're going to add glue to the edge. And just make sure you don't get it close to the center cutout. Go ahead and do your best to center that vellum. It is a little bit smaller. Just make sure you just get it on. It doesn't matter whether it's centered or anything, just as long as you get a piece on each edge. And then after I'm going to clean up my area there. We're just going to add it. We're going to glue it. And you only add glue to the edge again. Almost the same exact edge you added glue for the vellum. So you don't want it leaking to the clear vellum area or the outside. And kind of match it up so you can't see any of the blue in the back, so you can only see the cutout area. I did make the blue cutout smaller than that, so it was easier to match that up. Nobody's going to see the inside anyways. So now that we have that, so make sure you do that for both sides. We're going to glue together some of the pieces. Not all the pieces, just some of the pieces to get ready. So that little side top piece, we want to match up the edge, that top edge, with the tab fold. And you can see where it's located there. We're not going to do that top quite yet. So we'll add the other side, the large side piece, the same way. And the reason we're doing this is it'll be easier to attach the stars. I tried several ways of attaching it piece by piece, and I wasn't quite successful. So this is the best way I found. I'm sure there's always a better way. Somebody might find it. But after doing a couple of them, some test boxes, this is what I came up with. So we'll have that other little top side piece. I had a little something there. There you go. Wouldn't allow it to glue if I had a little speck of paper. So we're not going to glue it together yet because we want to just add some of the panels now. It's easier to add the panels now than later. So when you're putting these sides on, and I kind of messed up a little bit, but it's not that noticeable. But when you put the sides on, they are shaped again. So just make sure you dry fit them before you put them on all pieces. Because the geometry of this box is such that this should be centered and should center right on all sides, that little panel piece. But if you use the wrong side panel, it might not fit right. So I kind of did this on this box, but it's, like I said, it's not noticeable. I didn't make it geometrically proportional on all sides. It was difficult. I did that for the stars and the sides, but some of the panels have different sizes. Can I speak? And you see these panels for the middle piece. We can just flip those things up. Just center it. You'll see there's the same. You want to make sure you have the same amount of space around the edge. Make sure you apply pressure. One thing I didn't do here, because we're going to continue to add the rest of the panels. But one panel you can add at this point also is the red panel with the hole in it at the top. There's a hole up there. There's also 2 red panels with holes, and that's to put twine or rope or whatever you want for the handle. And I just forgot to do that at this point, but it is easier if you can flatten things rather than put a panel on after it's in a 3D configuration already. I thought it would be fun to do a camo red, white, and blue. I had this digital paper. It was interesting. Just something different. And my red was a little bit too bright, so actually what I did was used a black soot distress oxide and applied it to the red to just tone down that red a little bit, to make it a little darker tones. So here we go. You see how the star is going to go. So what we want to do is glue those little tabs on the bottom. We're going to add glue to it, and you're going to just match it up to that bottom side piece. It's pretty fragile, so don't do a whole lot at that. Be careful when you're doing this. You can't flatten it out to apply pressure for these, so you just need to use your fingers. And the same thing on the other side. It'll become sturdier once you have the top on, the top side, and also once we put the star in, it'll be really sturdy. So now we're going to close it up with that opposite side, that top edge. We're going to line that up carefully. So just that edge matches up, that one little section edge matches up to the tab fold. Just like we did earlier, the only difference is we can't flatten it. There's a better view. And then now we can glue these little top tabs. Want to make sure we align that edge with the tab fold, and you can make sure just put your finger along that edge and that will help. And if it's a little tall, that's okay. It could have been just the way you glued. If that little top edge goes over the other side edge, just a smidgen up. Mine did that on one. It's okay. Nobody's going to notice it. It does align. It's just the way you put that top, the first tab of that side piece. If you're not, it's so precise that just a little bit off will just cause it to not match up, you know, exactly. So once you have all 4 tabs glued, you see you have to reach in. I use my little fine tip applicator. But once you have those all glued, you'll be ready to glue in the stars. And that's it. See, it's a little bit sturdier. Now I already attached one, but I'll show you how to attach it, the second one. We're just saving time for the video, but let me show you. This is how it looks. It should look when you're done. There might be minor gaps, just so you know, like with when you glue it in, so don't worry about it. So now I'm going to show you how to do that. You can see the vellum on the other side, but you won't be able to see it once it's together. I'm just letting you know. Some people get worried about that. So we're going to start from the top and work our way down. So we're going to add glue to one of the top edge tabs. You're kind of going to slot it in and make sure that that tab fold matches with the edge, and make sure it's hitting in the corner. That the little corner piece is where the star edge is, the corner is. That makes sense. I'm trying to explain a good name. So once that's adhered, you want to make sure it's good and strong before you go on to the next tab. I'm going to add glue to that next adjacent tab and just slide it under, again matching up the edge with the inside of that tab fold. Since we made our little score lines all nice and crisp, all our fold lines are crisp, it's easy to do this, easier. So I'm going to fold in that tab a little bit on the other side, and we're going to add glue. And again, kind of slot it in there carefully. And you're at the same time, while you're doing this, you're kind of reaching in to apply pressure from behind, making sure it's lined up on the front. And then you can reach your hand in. This is why we keep it open. It's easy to reach in and do that. Then here we're going to push down that next tab. I drop my boxes a lot, so it doesn't hurt it. It's a nice thing about paper. So again, we're doing the same thing we did on the other side, and then just carefully slot it under, matching that edge to the inside fold. If it's a little bit difficult, give it a second. I have my difficulties too. I'm not an expert. May seem like it, but I pretend to be one, I guess. Anyways, you want to apply pressure from within. So that one wasn't sticking, so I want to make sure I put additional pressure on it. Now we want to pull out, I'm going to pull out those sides a little bit, because they will glue to the top of those tabs. So now I'm going to go to the left hand side, and I would highly recommend adding glue to both tabs at once. I did one tab at a time. I wasn't thinking, but it's the same process as the other tabs. You just want to line it up, make sure it's good and secure before you go on the next tab. But you might want to do 2 at once, otherwise you'll have to reach in and add glue. And if you don't have a fine tip applicator, it's going to be difficult. But you can reach in, fold back the tab, and add glue to the tab. I apologize, I was trying to get the right angle for the camera. So I'm just folding it back into the inside and applying pressure. So I did 2 tabs this time. The trick is you still have to apply pressure to one first and then move on to the second. And I am out of view a little bit, but it's the same process. And the nice thing is you can reach in from the side openings to apply pressure. Strategic openings. Now we want to push down that the middle of that bottom portion of the star after everything's secure. Otherwise you push it down before that like I just did, and it loosened up. I could edit that out, but I'm not going to, so you can, just in case you do the same thing, make sure it's good and secure. And then I gently push that in because we want to make sure that portion is a valley fold. And we're going to apply glue from within the box, folding back those 2 tabs. I'll do one at a time. You just need to kind of fold it in, push it in. You see how I'm applying pressure to the star to get it in the right position, and then make sure that that edge, that little panel edge, matches the tab fold. And then apply lots of pressure. That's a small tab. The angle, I wasn't able to get a really huge tab on it. And the same thing with for that last part of the star tab. So that's, I would say that's probably the hardest part of the box. So now we're going to do the bottom piece. So it's just a square box. I already had added some double-sided sticky tape. I used some red line tape, and that other one I can't, it's like a score tape, but it's not score. So we're going to add the little panels to the bottom. Just center them. Again, this is one of those situations where it's easier to glue it on first, and just make sure you start gluing the correct size to the correct. You know, one side is longer than the other, so you have 2 longer panels and 2 shorter panels. And I did end up embellishing these, not on the video, but later. So you could use glue to glue together the box, but I am using score tape because it's easier to work with. It'll adhere immediately. The downside is that it'll adhere immediately. So you have to be really careful about placement. And my hair was in the way, I apologize. But you want to line up that edge. And I'm only going to do one side because we don't want to close it. I still have to do something on the inside of the box. And self-admittedly, I actually closed the box and I had to reopen it. But you won't see that in the video. You might see my hair again, but... So we're going to glue those tabs to the inside of the adjacent edge, just making sure that that tab fold matches up with the edge. And since we are using a really strong adhesive tape, we have to make sure we get it right the first time. It's hard to come off. There are adhesive removers that I use. It's called Undo. I love it. It's how I got, later on I actually closed the box, but like I said, that's how I got it undone. So that's after my faux pas. But now we're going to glue that top box to that bottom piece we just put together. So it only goes one way. because one side is longer than the other. Make sure you have it situated right. And I did use double-sided, really heavy-duty double-sided sticky tape. So I have to be careful. I took the little protection thing off the top, and I'm going to match up at an angle, match up the edge, that inside edge, with the tab fold, and once it's aligned properly, apply pressure to the tab. We'll do this for all four, and I apologize the pictures weren't the best. I was having a hard time getting the top portion of the tape thing off. So tip, if you don't have nails like I don't, you could use like a little piercer. So you just want to be careful. The one thing, if you're using double-sided sticky tape, it is not easy to get off, like I said. So you want to make sure it's nice and lined up to that edge before you apply pressure. So got that one off there. And then I just apply pressure on the top at the same time as I'm applying pressure to the actual tab. And I did skip one tab, and then we'll close the box. You just didn't see me doing it. But you do all four. And then I already had adhesive on this because I told you earlier that I messed up and I had taped it previously. So you want to be careful, but it's good for these type of applications, rather than trying to struggle applying pressure to the edges with liquid glue. So now I'm going to add those panels I forgot to add earlier. So just go ahead and center it. You'll see that there's a little edge. It's a little bit bigger than that other circle. The circle in the panel, I mean. That was probably a confusing statement. After I did this, I thought the panels on the bottom, it would have been fun to emboss them. I'm not sure if you could do that with the top, with the hole. But you could remove the hole if you didn't like it too. So I'm going to just show you what I did for the little handle. I have a lot of wire, craft wire. So what I did was I took some cord that I got at a garage sale, and I actually got this wire, this particular wire that you see from Michael's in one of the grab bags, and I'm just gonna kind of entwine them a little bit, wrap the cord around the wire. All I'm trying to do is to give it a little bit more interest to the box, and also to give it a little stability so it stand up. You don't have to have, if you don't want it to stand up, you could just have one hanging, or you could just cover the hole completely if you didn't want it. But that's the initial design of this box. So you could hang it if you wanted to, just don't put a really, really heavy tea light in there, or not tea light, candle. You could LED candle or tea lights. You could use tea lights too. So the very end of this, I just kind of wrapped it around. Probably should have gotten my little needle nose, but I didn't. So it kind of makes it a little bit, it'll stand up. I can't think of the word right now. Rigid, that was it. So we're going to put it in the holes. But first I want to add a little blue. I try to challenge myself sometimes to just use some of the, I have a ton of craft items, different kind of things other than paper, because I've been doing scrapbooking and card making and lots of things actually. So if you're like me, you have a lot of things just hanging around, so I try to challenge myself every once in a while, try to do something different. So I'm just winding it around haphazardly. I had some issues at the end. And then what I want to do is tie a knot in each end. And of course you can't tie a knot before you route it through the holes. So if you do something like this, or even if you do something else, just make sure you have enough room to tie that end, because I found that I didn't make this side long enough to tie a knot in it. And I had to kind of double knot later on. I didn't show it here, but I had to double knot it because it was I was lifting it and it was pulling through the hole. I didn't want to make the hole too small, but I didn't want to make it huge either. So just to give you options. So I just kind of tied knots in either end to make sure it didn't come through. And like I said, I had to double knot. I lifted it up and found out it wasn't holding, so I had to actually double knot it. And that was my fancy handle that I added. I'm sure you all have a little bit more creative ideas for handles too. So here's the final box. I would recommend a 3-inch diameter candle. Mine was about 4 inches tall, which gave it a lot of light flowing up. That was nice. But you could use little tea lights if you wanted. And that's it. I hope you enjoyed this project, and thank you for watching.